Yay, we're live. Welcome to the Illuminated Archetype live chart reading. We have Traci here with us, and we are actually going to be diving into her chart today. So for the next 45 minutes, it's just Traci. So she booked a live reading with us. It's going to be so exciting. Traci, why don't you tell us what your experience is with Gene Keys and human design and kind of what led you to kind of come and find us too, you know?
Yeah, I was trying to think back on how I actually got connected to you guys. And, I'm just one of those people that kind of follows the flow of whatever is showing up in my consciousness. So it was a while back, but I have been following the Gene Keys first. Someone brought it to my attention in Dream Group here in Portland, Oregon, about 8 years ago. And so, of course, when something comes up like that, I have to go research it right away. And so I did. And then I just kind of let it kind of percolate in my system. For a couple years, I just sat on just, reading and contemplating a little bit here and there. And then every couple years, every year, I'd pick it back up and then do another deep dive and then kind of sit back. So that's kind of how I rolled with it. And then somehow I don't remember, I got connected with human design and saw how those interwove, and also astrology on top of that. And so I'm still just kind of letting it kind of all play out, but I've been much more, just getting a lot more downloads in the last couple years. So yeah.
So cool. So it seems like you digest a little bit and you kind of like pull back and then expand and pull back, like the contraction to expand, and then you add more stuff in.
Totally, because I really like too much heady. I love to do research and do all of that. But then I just kind of feel like, whoa, big weight on myself, and I can't like really even digest it in that way. So then I have to kind of let it, and then it kind of like works its magic through me, and I live it, I experience it. And then I'm like, oh, and I can put things together and embody it in that way. But it's always like that, everything for
me. That's awesome.
Or reworking the energy of something, and then I go and I make the connection like later. Oh, I lived that like 5 months ago. Now I'm learning the language of it. Like I'm learning the structure of it now, but I already like picked up on like the energetic of it 5 months ago. So it's just, I'd like them to come in at the same time. but and sometimes that happens, but for the most part, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you here and then to be able to dive into your chart. Is there something in particular you wanted us to focus on, or any questions that you had?
Well, not like off the top of my head. I feel like once we start, like I'll kind of I'll get some creative juices going once you guys, like whatever's like showing up for you, and then I can play off of that. I feel like this is going to be a co-creation, kind of like everything is.
Yeah, for sure. It always is. Okay, cool. So this is the Illuminated archetype. And so which archetype Traci has in her design? She has the Nourisher, which is the 27, and that's in her Vocation Sphere. So you can see it right here. She's got 27.2 in her Vocation or core. And this is what is imprinted in the womb. So we call it the core because it's imprinted in the womb, and it's the core. I mean, I always say this is the core of your design, but this is technically the core / vocation. And this is where you take on your karma for this lifetime too. It's like what you're going to transmute. So your core wound is what I mean by karma. And it's just what you decide to take on for the collective. So hers is denial. So the second line is the core wound of denial. We've got the 27 here, which is the nourisher. So who knows if it's that you're denying yourself the nurturing, the nourishment, or denying other people nourishing you, or it's hard to receive. So that's kind of what's happening here. And usually it's our unconscious Mars, and what it's the wounded Mars or something, the wounded masculine. And this is what we are transmuting in this lifetime to kind of nurture it, foster it, and allow it to be our greatest gift that we then can utilize in this pearl sequence. And we do that through unlocking our gifts, opening our heart through our relationships. And then when we start to unlock this, we can unlock our pearl sequence for ourselves. So just a little rundown of that. She also, just to mention, she also has, oh my gosh, it's so hard to remember all of the archetypes we were creating. The Explorer, is that what we called it? Or no? What did we call the 17 with the bird, Bella?
It wasn't the detective. It was the
No.
discoverer.
She has the detective. So she has the detective and the discoverer. She has the detective, the discoverer, and the nourisher so far. And the fire starter.
Oh,
so that's cool. You've got a lot of the archetypes we've already talked about, or we've already launched. So that's really cool. Bella, is there something, I mean, you have a lot of connection with this chart. Is there something you want to like dive into first?
I mean, I have a question, but first I wanted to just weave a little bit of that core wound, because I usually lately see a lot of, like, that's the core wound that you, like what Ashley was saying, you decided to take that on. Your soul said, okay, in this lifetime, this is the task, and I'm going to kind of imprint it already in the room so that it's there before I'm even born, before I even have experiences. And what I see usually lately is that it has to do with Pluto. And the 46 has come up. You have it in both sides of Pluto. It's come up a lot for me in my readings recently, and even in people's pearl sequence. There is something, you can also see that Pluto on the personality side is a second line, and you have a second line core wound. There is something with a mirroring, or something with the mirroring with the other not working. And I think there is something for you in relationships that you're here to figure out this lifetime, because you are a 1-3. So you have this very individual part of you, and maybe insecurity, I don't know, in relationship. So so that's like the background. And the question I have for you is, when I see your chart, it's a cross of contagion. It's what I feel the most powerful cross in the whole, in the whole everything. And I'm wondering, and you also have a lot of definition with your sacral, like there's a lot of definition, the integration circuitry. You're here to be able to behave, so that you can love yourself. You have the 46, the 29, which is saying yes fully and being the rainmaker. You have a lot of luck, a lot of contagion. So I'm wondering, where is there insecurity in your life? Is there, or might it have to do something with relationships? And just see, kind of, I don't want to go to the negative, but it's like a curiosity I have.
Yeah. There's so many. I think one thing is that it's hard. Choosing words to is hard for me sometimes to explain things. I have this way that I don't want to be like set in stone. Like I want to be seen for all of who I am, and I don't feel like words really do justice to that. And so I don't know why that just came up, but that's one thing in relating with people. Like I oftentimes just don't feel like someone totally knows me, or that they ever really could. Just based on, I just don't think so. Even if we had like a lot of experience together, they wouldn't know something like really, like the deep layers.
Okay. So what happens in your behavior then in those relationships, or like what happens when you have that feeling?
I kind of just do my own thing. So I'm pulling back and just having this whole world unto myself. So I have like just a lot going on, and a lot of research that I'm doing, and just a lot, but I'm not really sharing it.
Right.
And the little bit that I do share, or what I do share, I think that there's a disconnect because people don't really receive it, or I don't have the right audience. I don't know. Yeah, so it's Yeah, so I'm more like just seen as, you know, the woo woo one, or, you know, the, you know, people, it's like I'm like not relating to people in the way that I really want to.
I want to uncover that with you, and I think we're going to do it. What I see, that two things that stand out for me is your personality sign is 8.1. It's all about your own style, your individuality, your uniqueness. That is your life works. But if we go deeper into the chart and we look at the sign Saturn, you also have an 8 there, but it's an 8.6. So and that's your stability. That's the nest, basically, what we say in the star pole. What your whole expression in the outer world is going to like take its base in is in that 8.6. So if you think about 0.1 and 0.6, you have the basis and the highest of that hexagram. So what I feel, your stability in your stability and how you can penetrate the world with your, with your creativity, the masculine, it's going to depend on if you can really be all the lines on that 8. So the style for yourself, the style, your uniqueness and style with somebody else, your trial and error and playing with the uniqueness, the uniqueness and style from the heart, and then the powerful, like the 5th line, which is like the leadership of uniqueness, and then the 6th line, the gratitude for all these experiences. So for me, you are living the 8 on all the colors of the rainbow. And I feel today that we want to have you find your inner masculine. We want to have you find that Saturn with the 6th line, so that you can make that bridge in your own life. Because then, like I said, you have an amazing chart and profile. And I knew there was something there's something that we need to connect today.
Wow. Cool. I love it. Okay. I didn't know that about I just didn't know. I couldn't see that connection. I knew about the 8.1, but I didn't really get that 8.6 part. And also, every time you guys talked about 0.6, I felt like I didn't have any of that in my chart, but I wasn't I was focusing on the gene keys. And so that's really interesting.
Yeah, your masculine wants the whole spectrum. I mean, you're most familiar with like the creator. It's like, because the first line is all about self-empowerment, right? And so you're doing that to like establish your style, and you're like, of course nobody can really connect into that because I'm the one that's like multifaceted, multi-layer, and I'm not going to share every aspect of me with you. I would have to be very devoted to you to open up all of it, because maybe you're a little bit scared of somebody else's opinion of you and the rejection and the denial from them, so you don't open up completely to them. So how could anybody know all of you? But that 8th line, or that 8.6, that is kind of utilizing all of the lines. So you're kind of limiting yourself by not sharing yourself, because you're really invested in like the underground and the investigation and like figuring out who I am, because that's part of your culture sphere too, the 10.4. And this is, I mean, the 4th line, like honestly, like all the 4th lines is like, can you share yourself and your truth with the other? And so there comes a shift when you need to make yourself contagious. It's like, who am I, getting connected to that, and then like sharing that. And that's what's contagious. And that's what everybody's like wanting to drink from. Like, oh my gosh, can I get more from you? And your IQ and your EQ, I mean, the 15 is so magnetic. It's so, and it can be so frazzling too, but I love the 15 for its use of signs and symbols, and like, oh, look, there's a butterfly. It represents this. I feel like that's how your mind and your emotions communicate with you.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Yeah. It's so fun to play with the 15, because it's like, oh, let's give you some angel numbers and let's give you some animal totems. I just love it so much. I have that in my radiance sphere. So I've met a lot of people who have this, and I feel like we're just really attuned to signs and symbols.
Oh, that's very true.
So the other thing that's really interesting too is that you have the 27.2 in detriment. So the little triangle pointing down, kind of saying you have to experience the shadow of this. You have exactly the same thing in your Mercury on the personality side, the 27.2 detriment. So there is something here where when you don't open up for the possibility of mirroring, the possibility of seeing the other and mirroring yourself in the other, there are parts of yourself that you're never going to learn. So now you might feel with the curse of contagion, like when you're by yourself, you have these things coming through, you know, and you can channel and you can be in your element. But actually, you're not going to learn yourself fully, because your vocation is the mirroring, the reciprocity, and also the way that you are here to relate to other and communicate. Mercury on the personality side, it goes through that feedback. And the feedback is that it's not a one-sided feedback. It is a feedback where you grow and learn through the mirroring and merging with the other. So and even having the 27, it would be selfish of you or self-sacrificing, both and, because the other person wouldn't be able to learn in the mirroring with you, and you would not be able to learn either. So it's both selfish and self-sacrificing in one, if you get stuck in that second line that you have in your core wound, that you have in your Pluto, that you have in your Mercury. So we want to look at those detriments and see also from where is it that you are, from where are you sharing. And I also wanted to tie it into the EQ and the IQ. You have Mars and Venus conjunct in the EQ and the IQ, 15.5 and 15.4. So there is something also, again, with the masculine and the feminine, kind of how they come together. And I know Ashley knows this better than me because she has the 15, but like when you have the 15, you have an aura. And you can have people coming into a rhythm that's not good for them if you are not in rhythm. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit about, you know, your childhood, your parents, like a little bit of what happened, because we want to make sure that the SQ, the EQ, the IQ are reclaimed, so that you have your physical, your emotional, your spiritual, and your mental that are like co-creating instead of like kind of not liking each other.
Right. Yeah. Well, my parents divorced when I was about four and a half. And I spent time with both of them growing up. They were not really at odds, you know, outwardly, but they definitely were disillusioned with one another until I got older. But I really feel like what you're talking about has more to do with something that happened to me when I was little, and it has to do with molestation. And it wasn't really, I feel like that it might have started with my parents or before, but I feel like the real like wounding happened around age 5, when I was molested. And that was a babysitter's husband. So yeah, there's a lot there with the babysitter and the husband, and just how, you know, that all, you know, she was kind of the mother figure and kind of turning a blind eye. And then I became in relationship with this man. And I guess I learned a lot about, you know, what it feels like to show up and then, you know, retreat, go away, because the energy was so like strange and weird. And but I also wanted love. So but my being couldn't really I couldn't stay there, like all of me in that, because it was just like it was a, you know, like I knew it was a trauma. But part of me actually wanted to stay there,
Right.
because you know, there was a part of me was intrigued by it. There were like lots of different parts of me. Part of me was like scared to death by the whole thing. You know, part of me had to go to sleep, you know, and a part of me, you know, there was just so many parts. But that remained conscious, you know, through my whole life. So it wasn't like it went totally underground. And so I feel like that's the positive thing about that, but it's come up probably in different ways for me. Yeah, throughout my life. So
how long did it, like for how long was it, and how did the whole thing end?
Right. So it was, this is really interesting. It was always happened at nap time. So I pretended like I was asleep. And that it happened for over a year. And then I think I told my mom after that year was up, it was a school year, like kindergarten school year. You know, I don't want to go to that babysitter anymore. So she just said, oh, okay, we'll find a new one. She didn't really inquire why. And so then we just changed babysitters. So that was the end of that.
So there was no scandal or no guilt or no, like, it was just, okay.
No scandal on the outside until years later when I was in 7th grade, and she overheard me telling a friend. So there wasn't a big scandal, but there was within my family, it was like, oh, you didn't tell me, and let's take you to the, therapist, but it didn't blow up too much then either. So.
Would you be able to tell us a little bit about like school and maybe like your first boyfriends or like, partners, or what happened, a little bit up to, or if there was anything else that from your childhood, just so we kind of see where things went?
Yeah, I think school-wise, I was pretty, to myself and really wanting to, be seen and recognized by the teacher, but feeling like a little behind the times. Like I just wasn't like emotionally, things seemed really big, like just there was a lot of energy and energy going on around me, and everybody knew what to do, but I just kind of felt like I didn't feel like I really knew how to fit in, or I just didn't feel quite grounded. But as I got older, I started feeling more grounded and more excited about things like what I'd wear, and I just liked fashion, and I started having more friends and feeling more like I was landing, and being recognized more for my gifts in classes and things, and just basically showing up more myself, so that people could actually have something to reach. Yeah.
And what happened with intimacy? Like, when did it start again? Because you had a kind of weird start in a way. Like, how did you go into it after that again?
Yeah, I didn't really have issues with that. It just like progressed. I had boyfriends and yeah, and so it wasn't. I didn't have issues with that. I had.
No, I don't mean you did have issues, but like just something for us to understand your intimacy, because that has to do with the mirroring and the merging. So
yeah,
like a little bit of...
I had I'm trying to think like a specific. I had like a boyfriend that I had for a long time, though he was really different than I was. He was like one of the bad boys, and I wasn't really, but I was very attracted to him, and I could see like all the potential and the possibility in him, and so that was magical for me, and I didn't care about the other part, that there was a lot, a way we couldn't connect, but fully, because we were really, really different. But there was, I just fed off of the magic. I mean, that was, when we were together, that's all there was. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was asking too because you have a tantric channel, and I felt like with those two, line 2, and then you having a tantric channel, and then several things that can connect in the 14 and the 15 can connect into the sacral and the G. So I was just thinking that I wanted to understand if intimacy, it doesn't even like only have to be back then, but like, is intimacy playing an important part of your life?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that's what like kind of had me. I learned about eye gazing years and years ago in my first marriage, and I think I read a book, and it really sparked my attention, and I came to my husband and I said, we have to do this eye gazing. So, we did that, and he was open to it, but, it went so far with him. And then I think we got a divorce like a year and a half later or something. And then the next relationship that I had, that was, you know, we did eye gazing and a lot more. I mean, it was magical. That's my youngest daughter. Her dad and I were also married for 7 years. I was married for 7 years.
Mhm.
I have 2 daughters, and I was married for 7 years with each of their dads. And yeah, so I think that sacred sexuality was a big part of that connection, and he was already attuned to that. And so when we got together, you know, like that was just a huge part of our lives. And
Yeah, and that almost tells me like you have tapped into that 6th line in your inner masculine, the Saturn. I think you have tapped into that, and then you have a 1st line. So for you, it's so important in your attraction that intimacy is wholesome, like healthy for you. That is part of your, you know, of the basics, the foundation for you. So I'm so happy to hear that although it could have fired wrong in your childhood, and that could have been, you know, the 4th line. I say both in your SQ and your EQ. You could have been this person who's cold or warm, or maybe this person who needs to drink or take drugs or whatever in order to be able to open. But you actually, I mean, I feel like even you were reclaiming when that didn't serve you anymore. Of course, it is a little bit of that 27. Like you were kind of, he was using you, and it wasn't, it's your core wound in a way. He was using your body, and you pretended to not be mirroring him, that you were sleeping, but actually it was something that was going on, but he was nourishing you, and you were nourishing, maybe thinking that your open ego, you know, it didn't know, because you don't have a reference point for love, or like love, you don't have a reference point for worthiness. So you didn't know if it was love or, you know, validation, appreciation. But that couldn't fire really wrong. But the fact that you said after a year, I'm done with this. It's like you kind of reclaimed your power by yourself. And that's really beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is really fun. So there's this other thing that this is bringing up for me. It's just so interesting that, like, in my relationship with my youngest daughter's father, we did have the whole sacred sexual union. And there were times when I was just like, no, but I just want it to be regular. Like I try and like pull out of that, because sometimes it was too much. I mean, it actually had me on a whole awakening journey where it got like physical. Like for me, like so many things were opening, and I had to go back and really just opened, and when things were very contracted still, and there were parts that weren't wanting to be open. So I've been in that for the last 10 years, and really feel like I'm coming through that, and that I'm not in that fear of when, you know, I need to, just when something feels like there's constriction or stuckness or a symptom coming up in my body, I can really just go to that and let myself open to whatever it is that needs to move through. And that's really been powerful. And now I can come back and be in that sacred sexual space without feeling like, oh, it's too much. And I know when to, I can turn it on and off now also. So it doesn't feel like too much. So
yeah, I see that in your 1st line attraction, because the 1st line attraction is like, okay, if it's healthy, why does it have to be so sacred? Like it has that, like it kind of says, I want it to be healthy. But the 1st line, I mean, I see a lot there for you, because you have a small split, and it's a 3, like you have a small split with actually your emotional and your root. So I think there is something that you're reconnecting through, because you have the 3rd gate, or the 22nd gate, or the 18th gate could bridge your split. So there is something, I don't know why, but how it looks in the energy is that when these things happen in that 1st line, the bones, the very foundation of your body, and what happens with your intimacy and sexuality, it's because your design wants to bridge the 360, so the poles and the mutation, or the 18 and the 58. So the perfection and the satisfaction, or otherwise it would be the 22, the complete openness of the heart that has to do with that sharing, the 2022, to completely allow yourself to share and overcome, like switch that core wound into mirroring. So I can see it in the body graph how it wants to connect back.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What I know about just my, like tuning into the different energy centers in within me, the hardest one for me, or yeah, is my heart space. It's not that I'm not, I've always been either working with children or I have that nurture in me, and that's a big thing. But also it's hard for me to like really feel, like it's interesting. I could see how if I could really get in touch with that, it might be a good idea. I mean, I can definitely, but I'm more apt to like be up in my mind. Although I like to be in my body. I like to be in my body in a shamanistic way, though. And that's not always like opening my heart. Although the more I work with people in that way, I notice that it does. It at least brings me a lot of joy. So in that way, because I feel like I'm like my natural gifts are waking up or like right in alignment with where I'm supposed to be when I work with people in that way. And I've just like started really working with people's light bodies and healing techniques, and letting that come through. I started doing that remotely and for now, and that's been like really super powerful. And I feel like there is a mirroring that's going on. The mirroring that you're talking about is happening through that work. And it feels really good. And I feel like it's being really well received on the other end as well. So yeah.
Actually, I want you to come in too.
Okay, I was waiting for the invitation because I was like, I have some things, but I'm gonna let you guys talk through this all because it was really illuminating. At first, I was like, I mean, the way that Bella was asking you questions about the molestation, all that, I was like, this is so fascinating and interesting. Like, I feel like, oh man, that little girl that went through this, and I'm like, but she's not, like, I can't feel anything, any kind of trigger in her. Like, she feels very not wounded from it. And I'm like, well, maybe that's because her child is just so innocent, and it can also see it from the bigger picture. So like, I don't know if you ever had to go through any kind of like counseling or consoling or anything like that, or if you're so outside of your body because like, I don't know, like maybe you left your body to be asleep so that you weren't actually in your body to experience the trauma in your body. So you left. And I feel like you said, like with your heart, it like the biggest energy center that was hardest for you to connect to is your heart. I was like, well, the portal to her heart, I feel like is the 29, and it goes through the body, because if you can see you have the 29 here and the 46 here. It's like you can get access to your body and your heart through that devotion to yourself and devotion to your energy. And like when you're able to like also go into communion with another person and like work on sacred sexuality and like really be present in the body, because it is also really easy to leave the body when you're having sex. Like you can have a very energetic experience and not ever be in your body. And so I'm like, I think that's what you were healing a lot of the times you were working with sacred sexuality, is like, let's get in the body, let's experience this, especially because it can bring you into your body, like really the bones of it, because it's like the first line that you have in your attraction. But I feel that like this whole channel, the 2946, is what gives you access. So you're very like spiritual, like I can tell by the things that you mentioned and talk about in the beginning of the call. It's very, very spiritual, very connected energetically. And I feel like it's the 15 too. Like I have the 15, and the 15 will just like bring you into that. I don't know. You're just like so all over the place, you know, because you're so big and magnetic. And so it's hard to like put all that in your body, especially with the 50. You have the 58.5. There's something really impactful and huge about the energy of the 58, and then in a fifth line. So I feel like it's almost hard to, I'm getting like all kinds of sensations on the right side of my head. It's so weird. It's hard to stick you all in a body. It's just like to fully embody yourself. So you're working through like integrating. And it's like, what's going to come up when you're like really in your body, you know, and what's not completely open in your heart. Cause there's a lot of fourth line in the center of your chart. We've got EQ fourth line, SQ fourth line, culture fourth line. There's a lot of fourth lines in here that's related to the heart chakra. And then, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I'm just pulling in all these different things, trying to like see the pattern of it all too. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what I wanted to mention.
Well, I definitely had a huge heart opening where I was just like really connected. When I first met my youngest daughter's father, it was the day that we did do the eye gazing, and we did some kirtan, and it was a Sunday, and then after that we separated from each other for a little while for the day, and I just had a huge like that was like the beginning of my awakening, or my, you know, the idea that, oh, something's really been turned on that's different. And that was definitely like a huge heart opening. Though though, you know, like it goes off and on. I can switch in and out of that. Yeah, but I think I would like to have that turned on.
Yeah. I wonder why you switch on and off. Like, I wonder why there's like a on and off button. That's, in with the 29, that sounds like if you're fully devoted to being completely like turned on, turned up, feeling good, like all that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might be a little bit hard to live in 3D land when you're like that. I don't know. I'm kind of like trying to recognize the patterns that I see, but that seems like you could, like, that's the next step to move towards, is like, can you feel that all the time? And what would that mean for you? And what would that be like?
Yeah, I think that's all about, for me, like in the last 10 years, it's been about, can I hold that energy? Can I hold that much light? Can my body, you know, because it's just constantly upgrading. I'm constantly getting, it's just a lot of Kundalini. You can call it, I don't like naming these things because I don't like things. What I've learned also is that these are just names, and it's helpful for us because we can communicate, but also there's just so much more, you know, just like the downloads that I get when I'm clearing this energy, and when the energy is moving through me, is just like, yeah, energy doesn't just go up and down a channel. It moves everywhere. You know, if you try and make things static and try and name things, and you know, things are really different than how they are in this 3D. There's a lot more going on, and so just getting the downloads, it's a lot of energy, and it's a lot of work. And so yeah, and so for me, it's just like opening. Can I be with it, and can I open? And I've been able to do that more and more. I come into health crises every few years, it seems, these last 10 years. And that's just it's usually, now I'm understanding it to be, the last one was a couple years ago. And all of a sudden I just couldn't take in water or food or anything. Like I seriously could not put a drop of water in my, but it sounds very odd, but my body was like rejecting everything. And it was like very scary. But instead of like realizing that, oh, another big wave of this was coming through, I immediately went to that fear place, you know, and really just felt like, oh my God, I'm dying. And I feel like I'm hoping that if that happens again, like I'll really know, you know, that, oh, this is, here it is again. It's just showing its face in a different form this time. And it's going to feel really different. And, but this is it. And so I can open to that. And I feel like that if that happens again, that's going to be the case. But every time it happens, it's been interesting the last 10 years. Yeah.
I guess that makes sense that like you would go through health crisis because you're of where your Pluto is. You have Pluto in 46. So it's the body, you know, love of the body. And so I can imagine it would have cycles and waves of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that really, that time really taught me about my relationship with, you know, nutrients and how, you know, what I'm a match to, and that I don't always get to, you know, like what my ego wants to put in my body and what I think is going to be something that's good because, you know, it's something I used to like, or it's what I'm told is healthy for me, or any of that. Like, that's just not how I operate anymore. At least I'm still in relationship with that. But really, like, now my system wants specific things, and it's usually not what I'm like, oh, but I want that pizza. Why can't I have that pizza? You know, I still kind of
I think these like what you call health crises are pretty much, I mean, I feel like you're done with those. I don't know that you're going to experience another one. I think it might be in a different way because I'm looking at your life cycle charts, and you were the vessel of love from 29 to 41, and that one had the purpose sphere with 46. And I feel like that's probably where you were. I mean, you were 3-5 then, so you're still figuring out all this stuff and opening your heart. So it's really cool just seeing things mirrored through your environment and the like themes that you go through in your life. Like right now, you're in the cross of dedication. So 23, 43, 30, and 29. You have the 29 again in your body. So that devotion, it feels like a lot of, I mean, hard activity with that 29 coming up so frequently. And you had your north and south node where 3 in the south and 50 in the north. And 50 is all about corruption, bringing things into equilibrium. A lot of people can go through health type stuff, but what you're moving into now, your next cycle, your next theme doesn't have a lot of indication that it's more about adventure, and it's more about truth and illumination. Like you're the cross of consciousness, 35, 5, 63, 64, and that's the same as Richard's cross. It's a 4-6 too. So I don't know. I feel like you've just been figuring out your own rhythm and what you need, and now it's like the next thing is just, it's going to be a different journey. So I think that you're pretty much over with that stuff if you can let it go for yourself. You know, if you can just, oh, I'm done with that. I'm kind of integrated. I'm figuring it out for myself. I don't need to go through this stuff anymore. You know?
Yeah. That's great.
Positive.
Now, you know, that brings up questions for me around what I actually am going to be like, how I'm going to be exchanging with the world, with people, with in a work sense, how I'm going to be exchanging. And I mean, I'm already starting that, but will it be around? I always have this question about, you know, what will it be around? Will it be, I guess, for me, I can just see it just naturally evolving, and I don't even need to ask this question. because I feel like it'll be different with whoever shows up. But if I'm going to market myself, like what? Yeah, how I'm in question about that. Like I'm really like,
yeah. Well, it's whatever you're devoted to. It's like whatever you identify with, whatever you're devoted to, because that's what, if you can fully commit yourself to something, that's what makes you contagious. That's what makes you magnetic, because you have to 29 down here. And then if we're moving up through this path of individuation, you came here to be in physical vessel. Your soul chose to be devoted to different things. You have the third line here. It's like, it's different. It's energy, it's experience, it's different things. So not being stuck on, I just do this. It's like, okay, now I do this and now I do that. It's like you can be devoted to many things, but you have to say, am I all in or not? And then focusing on that. And then that, once you're devoted, that truth will be illuminated for you. You will be, through your relationships and through your relationship to yourself, in yourself, that truth will be illuminated to you through you inquiring, like, okay, I just said yes to this. This is my yes. Now what? And then you'll be able to gain that bigger picture through your heart. Like your fourth line in the SQ, this is your heart. So like getting that bigger picture through your heart, and like the fourth line is all about like truth as well. Like what's your truth? Can you see the bigger picture? Like once you say yes to this and you get to the truth, then it's like zoom out and see, okay, what's this bigger picture? And that's what's going to give you all the energy to have the impact that you need to be uniquely yourself and show that to the world. And that will make you magnetic, because that's what you are offering, your unique style. And the truth comes from within you. You put together the whole puzzle pieces because the puzzle's inside you. And that's what you're sharing with the world. And the people who need to hear that or on your fractal line will resonate with that, will be magnetic to you while you're sharing these kind of things. Like you're a 1-3, so here's what's my experience. Okay, I'm going to share this kind of stuff, and it's magnetic from my experiences with beliefs, with my mind, with my emotions, with all that stuff. Like you're going to have impact and magnetism when you're sharing the things that you've gone through to empower yourself. So it's going to change. And that's why each life cycle you've kind of been focusing on different things. So the next thing that you're going into,
and am I going into this new thing, or am I already like
in about 3 years? So it's ramping up for that now, and you'll be sensing it and feeling it. And so all you have to do is ask, like, where am I being called to? And then investigate. I feel like that's like you're inquiring, like, let me figure this out, like asking the questions instead of like, you can't, like the problem that a lot of people face is like, they're like, how do I market? How do I market? Marketing is in your life's work. Like this is your brand. This is what you're putting out. And we can't start here. We have to start here. So the more you get into your body through that fire that you're feeling inside of you, inside of your heart, inside of that solar plexus center, like where is that fire and what is it fueling? And once you can identify what it wants to fuel, you can keep stoking that fire and being committed to keeping that fire burning. Because if you're not continuously putting like wood or coal or some kind of fire source on that, it's going to die out. Right? So we have to be dedicated to keeping that fire alive. And once you get it big enough, the freaking bonfire is ready for other people to go around. But people aren't going to want to take your fire. You can't self-sacrifice yourself and be like, hey, come check out this like candle I have over here. Do you want to keep warm over this candle? No, you're making bonfires. Okay. So like make the bonfire as big as you can and figure out what that truth is. See it from the bigger picture. Like, who is meant to circle around this fire? What campfire songs are we singing? Like Kumbaya, like all this stuff. Like what's happening here? And how am I sharing my vitality and energy with people in my own unique way? And once you get up here, that's when you're like, I know how to market this. We're having a freaking party in front of my bonfire. Come hang out.
All right.
Yeah. So you won't know how to market it until that bonfire is pretty damn big. And you're like, oh, I just can't contain this fire inside of me anymore. So.
Okay.
Cheers. What would you say? What would you say, Bella? What other stuff would you?
I mean, I love what you said, and I would say the same thing, kind of explained in a little through my vessel. Like I have to say, this is a chart and this is a reading. where I would say we're absolutely not done, Traci. Like, we have kind of sniffed on the surface, and there are deeper layers here that are so much more important. I would say, like, come with us in non-liquor design membership group, whatever. Like, I have things that I want to like go through with you, but it's not going to be enough time. But I can say a little bit of it. I can see that what you are doing, because I have a similar thing. I have a split as well. I'm a generator, I have a split. What you are basically doing is that you're living in your split, not in the part of you that is a generator. As a generator, you have to start with the sacral center. Even if you're a manifesting generator, that's where you live from. That's where you're grounded in. If you go out and live in a split, you are going to burn yourself out. And if you have Kundalini in your body, it's going to be much worse. So what I see you do is that you kind of detach. You live from your emotional center and your root center. And more than saying the centers, you live from the 4130, because you love those experiences that are so like electric. These are experiences that you live for, that you're here to do, and these are your superpowers. But when you are not completely grounded in your sacral that is connected to your G, to your heart, to your humanness, you are going to be brittle. And your body's going to be like, okay, I can't take anything. I'm brittle. I'm just an electrified, thing. And that's something that is so important for you to understand, that it's not even how to merge a split. It's how are you a true manifesting generator? How can you make sure that you never leave that behind? That's who you are. Again, you can't mark it before you have, the ground. So there is a super, super important thing there. And I think that it is connected to that completely open ego. There is something with worthiness. That is, you don't have a reference point for it. I don't have a reference point for it. So I know it. So there's something where when we have that, we go up to universal love instead of going to human love. And there is something also where the first kind of human love or intimacy that you felt almost was from that man. And you say that you were wanting validation and love. I think that your parents weren't good at showing human love for each other, probably, or even for you. So there is something with the fourth lines in your SQ and IQ where you have learned to turn off and on. Like, you have that switch. The fourth line is called or romantic. It has that. And it comes from those early years where you didn't get a healthy human heart that is open all the time. So with that completely open worthiness center, it's like you don't have a reference point for human love. That's why you don't know where to go, because it wasn't there. So right now, what you need to do is to find out what human love is. So that's why it's actually dangerous for you to go into the shamanic, electric, Kundalini things. I don't say that to a lot of people, but for you, I see that would be what Ashley was speaking about, kind of that disconnect thing from the true part of you, because your culture, coming back to the 4A for the 10.4, is the fourth line as well. And that's what you're going to do in the world. And it's completely connected to self-love, because this 10th gate is the role of the self. So as long as you hang out in the universal shamanic, well, that you are not going to be able to underpin your life's work, your marketing, your brand with what truly is, with your style. We want you to come back and to empower yourself through the self-love. And it has to do with working with the open centers. It has to do with understanding the split. There is something else that is super, super strong right now. The nodes, they are like, it takes like 18 years for the nodes to go through the whole thing, right? So basically now the 10 and the 15 are the nodes, and they have been in 10.4 and 15.4 for a while. So I don't think the fact you're here with us, it's because you're desiccating the whole thing now, because you are coming back to yourself, to the role of the self, not just to the, to the woo-woo, the universal, the kind of like tantric. No, it's like something in your 63-1 in your attraction that says, I'm here to inquire truth, the fucking foundation of truth and what it is to be human through my heart. And that's what I want to live. And actually, I don't care about Kundalini. I care about that. Like, that's what I see you do in this nodal environment. And it's beautiful. Like, I feel empowered by it, because there's a force in it that is human. And that's why it's worth it to be here, to be that, not just to be that mirroring for other people where it doesn't really happen for you completely.
Yeah. Wow. There's definitely something that really, really resonates with me about what you're saying.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying it like in 15 miles per hour, because I want us to, do it, have been going for an hour. But here, so now it's like, forwarded fast. But there is, in everything I said, there is like a whole thing that you can open up and find your own truth. Because I'm just seeing the mechanics of it, and you have the truth of it. And that is your attraction, inquiring for truth, the very human foundation in the bones of what it is to be human.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that actually makes me feel, that like really gets me in that high heart spot. Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it when you go really forceful, Bella. And it's not forceful, like it's just like I need to give you all of this right now. So maybe you might want to listen to this again, Traci, so you can resonate, hear different parts of it, and let it like vibrate inside your body. I keep getting freaking the right side of my head keeps tingling as I'm like talking to you. I'm like, what's happening here? We'll figure it out later, and I'll be like, this is why. I have no idea why though. Okay. Any other questions that you have for us as we begin to wrap up? Let me pull down your chart really quick.
Actually, I don't know, but I would, if you go up to your head right now, you're going to go do exactly what you always do with the 4. You're going to close this and go this. So I would almost like ask you to kind of don't stay with us when we turn off the live. Like, know that we're here, but kind of, I wouldn't go to the head. This is what you do. Like, if you speak to us now, you would snap out. And we want you to be where it feels. We don't want you to even choose about cold or warm or head or heart.
Okay, let's hurry up and get off.
Yep.
Well,
I know this really well.
I would then sit with it, and then we're available for you to reach out to after you've sat with it for a little bit, for sure.
Right.
So I would feel it in your body, see where it wants to go, and kind of collect all the stuff that's coming up in like one place too. I don't know. Maybe you need to like set something on fire inside of you, like collect all the stuff that's coming. That's kind of what I kind of see or feel. So let's just, I mean, check back in with us and tell us what happens. We're super curious. So,
I definitely will. Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Traci. And we will be hearing from you again soon. And thank you, everybody who joined us. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.